How's it going? Liam Taylor here at LTGuitarist, here today for FStoppers, where we're going to be talking about still image sonification, the process of taking an image, in today's case a photograph, and turning it into sound. So I've got a handful of images here from the FStopper team. We are going to open these up inside of Photosounder. Photosounder is a piece of software. It's not very expensive, and it kind of does exactly what it sounds like it does. It takes a photo or an image and it turns it into sound. Let's open up this one from Abby Ferguson. So you'll notice that Photosounder has taken Abby Ferguson's photo and kind of squished it to the aspect ratio it likes. That doesn't actually affect the sound. So what happens if I just play this from the start? We can turn vision mode on here and it makes it a little clearer what it's actually reading. So obviously the dark blue is no sound and these bits of yellow and white are louder sounds. And these faint bits of yellow are a quieter sound. And what's interesting about this image in particular is it looks like that's a reflection of, I think, what's a blind here. You can hear this little almost a ghost of the sound that you hear in a second. So you hear kind of a precursor to this sound. Let's listen to that. It's kind of like a little lead into the sound, which is really fun. And you'll notice that what we're hearing is lots of individual tones that sound like they're descending. It's a little bit like the intro to the THX surround sound thing in cinemas. And there's a few different ways we can manipulate this sound. We can play with the gamma, so we essentially get more sound out of it or less sound. So if you turn the gamma up, it's brighter, therefore you get a noisier sound. Quite a lot of background noise there. That's a little bit annoying. We can turn the gamma down, so we only really hear these very brightest parts of the image. We can also play with the frequency range, so we can bring up the lowest frequency or bring down the maximum frequency, and that is basically just confining the frequency range within which Photosounder is making these sounds. Let's open up another image. For example, let's take a listen to this image from Andy Day. This is quite a bright image, so I'm going to turn vision mode on and I'm going to play with the gamma, so actually the image as a whole is a lot darker. And the reason I'm doing that is the brighter an image is, the more sound you get. And actually I want to restrict the kind of sounds we're going to get out of it. So we're going to hear all the gaps between these trees, which is a particularly interesting sound. It's got a kind of vocal texture to it, doesn't it? We also have the option to invert the image. So let's say I only want to hear the trees. I don't want to hear the background and it's quite bright. So let's bring that down a little bit. I'm going to open up this image from Ali Choudry here. What's really interesting about this is it's such a high contrast image. So I know that's going to sound really good in Photosounder because, as you recall, we're not going to hear anything for these dark blue areas. We're just going to hear the yellow areas, which is the back of this chap. In fact, I'm going to change the gamma slightly so we don't see that little tiny bit of white on the background there. It's quite a satisfying noise. It's got a bit of a upwards curve to it. So that's a nice sound. Let's try another one from Ali Choudry. Let's try this one. We've got a red piece of silk as well. It's quite a nice sound, quite satisfying. It sort of sounds a bit flowy, kind of like silk does, but it's quite low, isn't it? Like most of the information is in this lower part of the image, especially the brightest information. So I'm going to tune this a bit. So the lowest frequency is 320. So it's going to raise some of that lower information up a bit. Again, very flowing, very satisfying. I'm going to open up this image from Ali Choudry. The reason I'm using this is because it's quite abstract. There's lots of interesting shapes in here, and there's a few different layers in terms of color. We've got the gray and the black in the background. We've got the red and then the black in the foreground. So if I invert that, I'm going to turn the minimum frequency all the way down. I'm going to turn the time back so it's a very, very long piece of audio. Something I really enjoy doing with sonification is taking an image, especially something abstract like this, and really stretching it out so you can have a piece that lasts, I mean, minutes, hours, days if you really want. I'm going to save this as a WAV file. So I've imported the audio into Cubase and I've opened up Supervision, which is just going to help us visualize this audio. So if I hit play, you can see inside of the spectrogram we've actually got a lot of that visual information there, which, I mean, of course we do, because we've just sonified the image. Why wouldn't there be? Whilst we're inside of Cubase, I'd like to show you another piece of software. This is called Harmor by ImageLine, and this is a VST synthesizer, so it's made such that you can play synthesizers with Cubase or whatever DAW you might use, or with MIDI instruments like this keyboard in front of me. It also has a bunch of presets and options for sonification, the same as Photosounder, but you can actually play these images with a keyboard. I'll show you what I mean. Let's import this image from Abby Ferguson. So if we play with the settings a little bit, oh, there we go, that's pretty cool. Let's set it so rather than looping, it goes back and forth. So now I have a playable synthesizer created from Abby Ferguson's image. And if I open up Supervision again, you can kind of see the image there. What I like about this image is it kind of has a natural rhythm to it. So when you go back and forth between the dark areas and the light areas, it kind of creates this natural rhythm. Which is obviously created by, oh, just the fact that there's shadow in the image, the little tassel that you use to close this blind, the shadow here. My battery died, so now I'm here. That was a really brief overview of just a few examples of still image sonification and image synthesis, some of the stuff that I do quite regularly in the sound design and sound art world. I've got quite a few videos about sonification. Some are examples where I've worked with artists in the past. Some are videos of me talking in a little more depth about this kind of thing. I will find some way to link them. Thank you, FStoppers. Thank you, Tom at FStoppers, for letting me talk at you. Bye. I didn't script this bit. Is that obvious? Yes.